In order to differentiate between different elements of the same type, like to apply a green background to one paragraph but not to another using CSS, you'll need to add custom attributes called classes and IDs to your HTML elements. These attributes are extremely practical and you'll use them all the time. In this HTML document, we have a series of paragraphs, 2 of which start with watch out. You can see them in the result over here that the web browser would show us. This is a good reason to use something called a class. We might want to unify these 2 elements of being somewhat of the same type, which in HTML we would call class. I can start typing the attribute name, which is class, inside the opening tag of the P element. You then choose the name of the class that you want to set, and this is completely up to you. You can call classes whatever you want, but you should try and write them in a logical way so that your code is readable and understandable. We said that these paragraphs might be considered warning paragraphs, right? So I can call this class warning, and you'll notice that when I finish typing warning, the paragraph will have an orange background, and that's because I've written CSS on the side that will automatically change this appearance. However, if you're just doing this activity without CSS, you won't notice a difference. Voila, and we can see that this paragraph now has a class of warning that has custom CSS attached to it. But either way, even if you weren't working with CSS yet, it still indicates in the HTML itself that this paragraph has a different sort of meaning to it than the rest of them. Let's go ahead and also add the warning class to the other relevant paragraph. You'll notice that its appearance changes too because of the custom CSS that I've already written. Now you'll use a class if you have multiple elements on a page that you want to apply the class to. However, let's say you only have one element that you want to apply a sort of class to. In this case, you wouldn't use a class. You would use something called an ID. At the bottom here, you see a paragraph that says, therefore, this is the one thing you should remember from the whole page. This is kind of a ridiculous sentence, and it doesn't match the rest of the text in that it's in English instead of in lorem ipsum placeholder text. But we'll say that it's the one key takeaway we want to have people remember from the page. Since in theory there will only be one of these per page, it's a good reason to use an ID instead of a class. The ID attribute is the same. You'll start typing the name of the attribute inside the P opening tag, or the opening tag of whichever element you're applying this to, and type the name of an ID that you decide. Again, I've added custom visual effects to the code behind the scenes so that this will appear differently as soon as I write my ID name that I've already decided on my own. But you could call this ID whatever you wanted, and as long as you referenced it the same way in your CSS later, it would still appear depending on the styles that you set. Regardless of CSS and visual effects though, you can still tell that adding classes and IDs to your HTML code makes the code easier to read and understand.